Hey Cleveland, this is Annie Nickoloff.
And this is Nikki Delamotte. Welcome to our first episode of our new music podcast, To Nick, streaming on cleveland.com. In each episode, we'll be filling you in on upcoming shows, giving you exclusive premieres from area bands, and telling the behind-the-scenes stories from the local music industry.
Today, you'll be hearing from some special guests at Gotta Groove Records, Cleveland's own vinyl record factory, and Wax Mage, a side project by a Gotta Groove employee that makes their own experimental vinyl records. Then, we'll be premiering a new song from local rock band Mr. Carnivore. Oh, and we'll let you know about some shows this February.
First up, you'll hear from Wax Mage's Heath and Gotta Groove Records owner Vince in a conversation we had at cleveland.com earlier this week.
Hey, hi, good morning, or good afternoon, or whenever you're here. I have no idea.
That's Heath. He's the head of Wax Mage at Gotta Groove Records.
So, yeah, I got pretty lucky that I was able to start pressing records at Gotta Groove Records about 7 years ago. And Vince has been kind enough to let me experiment with all the scraps and vinyl and stuff laying around there. And that's kind of how I got started making these records. A lot of it was experimental. I had to do a lot of time studies and was always pushing to get, Vince and Matt at Gotta Groove. And like, can we sell this? Can we sell this? And eventually, after I was able to iron a few of the designs out, we were able to start offering Wax Mage designs at Gotta Groove Records.
Absolutely, and so that's even kind of evolved to a bit of a record label as well. Like you put out some records. I've put
out a couple of records. We've done a lot of co-releases with Quality Time Records here out of Cleveland, and then just some co-releases that we jump on. Just because a favorite band of mine would show up, he was getting a record press at Gotta Groove, so I'd call him up and be like, "Hey, can I put out 20 of these on my label?" It kind of just evolved from there and grew from there, just by word of mouth, really.
And you have experience in the local music scene, too, as a musician, right?
I do. I play in a hardcore punk band called Desh, and I play bass, and I also play bass in Gold Mines.
Absolutely. And so, we've seen that model at places like Happy Dog, where, the owners have invested in hiring musicians. Obviously, you know better than anyone what is kind of involved with the industry. So I was wondering, from Vince's perspective, what kind of drives that decision to hire all these musicians? There's so many kind of behind the scenes that work with you.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is just by virtue of opening our doors, we attracted interest from people in the music community who were looking for a regular gig versus just playing on the weekends and that kind of thing. And so
this is Vince, the owner of Gotta Groove Records.
That was certainly part of it. The other part of that is that I'm a firm believer that the quality of your product is a reflection of the quality of your employees, and employees who are engaged in what they do and love what they do are going to generally put out a quality product. And certainly musicians have an appreciation for the format, what goes on it. In many cases, perhaps they've done vinyl before, and they know what that's like. That first time you get to open it up, and you're on vinyl, and you want it to be good. You can't hire somebody and teach them to be passionate about a product, or it's difficult, But so they already come to us with sort of that advantage.
Could you talk about some of the musicians that work at Gotta Groove?
Sure, besides Heath, there's, you can correct me too, I'm probably going to miss a few. There's Shayla, who's in Seafair, Chris Smith, who's in a number of bands, Inmates, Terminal Lovers.
Keel Hall,
yeah. Mitch Ribis, Fascist Insect. Tim Thornton has Tiger Village.
He's got his own record, or his own label as well, that he works.
Oh, right, that he puts stuff out on cassettes. Carter is in Fascinating.
He's in a lot of bands.
And he also did his own project, put out a short cassette thing, I think. It was really good.
Donnie Brown.
Donnie Brown has been a singer in a lot of hardcore bands.
Paul Mac records pretty much every punk band in Cleveland.
Yeah. So Paul Macarone is a well-known local engineer, producer, records.
Speaking of engineers, Brian Straub.
Brian Straub, yes. Boy. See, I'm glad you're here. I'm going through the Rolodex of employees in my mind, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some.
I'm sure
people.
I am too.
I'm sorry if you're listening to this.
So as far as, doing the Wax Mage project, talk a little bit about, just those first records that you did. What, because they're so unique and just so cool looking that, what were kind of your inspirations behind that, like putting them together and just, what goes into the looks and aesthetics of that?
Well, in the record industry, there are a few standards, like the half and half color, half black, half white or whatever, and then the splatter records. So those are like some of the things that I started learning, and then learning how, vinyl as a medium works. So it was really all a surprise to me as well. The machine is going to do the same thing every time. It's going to press a little round puck of vinyl at 1500 psi. Every single time it's going to do the same thing to that material. And what can I do different? Or where can I lay those materials on the plates to make something else happen? What size does the vinyl need to be? What temperature does the vinyl need to be? It's really still, even at this point, it's experimental. I have, I've locked in a few techniques and a few designs where I'm like, I know that this is what's going to happen, And occasionally the colors act differently, so I can get one effect with purple and pink that I can't get with red and white. You know what I mean? So it's really a lot of trial and error. Every day I'm surprised, just by like an idea I have. I'm surprised that I even still get ideas, even after doing it. So, and I'm inspired a lot by what other people are putting out there in the industry as well. And I think that I've kind of spurred on like a little thing in the industry where I have like other people, we share information, but not the big secrets, you know what I mean? So it's just like kind of I'm like, think about the temperature of what you're doing, and then other people will tell me, well, I thought about this and this happened, and I'm like, cool. So there's like an exchange of ideas, but not like an in-depth thing, because it's like pretty secretive. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting us into some of
For sure, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
We were wondering if you ever get any interesting requests for vinyl, like any strange stories.
I've heard that there's some things that you won't do.
I'm not allowed to put marijuana in a record yet. But some guy asked me, he was like, hey man, can you put a razor in a record? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, it's thin enough. I actually had like a caliper, which is a measuring tool out, and I'm like measuring one of our blades, and then measuring a record, and then like considering how I could lay it in there without completely destroying a pair of $10,000 dies. But I did do it. I was able to get an actual razor inside of a record. I put guitar picks in records. We put coffee in a record. We put hair in a record. We
Shredded cash in a record. Glitter in a record.
Wait, hair?
Yes.
That's
This is the grossest thing.
The record was called 7-inch record.
Yeah.
Your,
I don't know. They called it the piss and hair variant.
yeah, it was like getting your hair wet with pee while you take a shower or something like that.
It's
So
one of a kind. That's
it
what
was
we
absolutely
do.
one of a kind.
yes. So there was when we got the hair, it was sealed in a plastic bag with a note from the label or the customer saying that this hair came from so and so. It was washed right before it was cut.
Thank you.
Etc. Yeah. But what we won't do is we've been asked to do blood. We won't do blood, and it's just sort of a
Safety hazard.
Yeah.
well, sure, yeah. I was asking my press operators to be exposed to that, and that's so we won't do that. But yeah, and the coffee ground thing, that was interesting, but it made a real mess of our press. You don't realize that coffee has oil in it actually, so. Yeah, we won't be doing that again, but it was interesting.
So you're saying it's more glitter, less coffee.
More glitter is always good.
Right.
So I think one thing that's kind of fun is I have actually been to multiple Wax Mage art shows, and I love that it's kind of elevated to that sort of art form. Do you see that, especially, there's so many, talks about the vinyl revival and like that interest and things like that. So does it kind of surprise you to see it, hanging up on the wall of like, Tremont Art Gallery and things like that? Or is it something that, more people are just kind of seeing for what it is as, an art?
First of all, I'm blown away that people are actually considering it art, because it's not anything that's really ever happened before. When a label puts out a record and it looks really cool, everybody, congratulates the label for putting that out. When I'm like, raising my hand, I'm like, hey, I was like, I made that. It's kind of like being a chef in a kitchen, and there's 2 or 3 other chefs that work there, but if you go on Wednesday night, that one chef that you really dig is going to be there. There's no cooking show for press operators, and there are a lot of press operators out there that are doing really amazing artwork. It's not an easy thing to do, to make something that not only looks beautiful spinning, but also sounds beautiful. It's definitely a very focused skill set, and something that people think about. I never considered myself an artist by any means at all. I'm just a blue-collar factory worker, always have been. And I just found something that really clicked for me. And it's an honor, a pleasure to be able to show the records that I get to make at Gotta Groove Records, in a public forum and an art forum. So I really feel like an outsider art kind of thing, but really cool that I get to do that.
With vinyl records in general, we've seen such a resurgence. Have you seen, more of a demand for these specialty designs or colors or things like that? Has that also come up more in recent years?
Sure, yeah. People who come by to plan for tours, a lot of the ones, particularly older ones like myself, will say, wow, look at all these color records. And I don't remember color records when I was a kid. And they were out there. They just weren't as prevalent as they are now. It's just, trying to market a physical product in a digital world and trying to stand out. So I think that's a big reason why you see more color and more color variations. But we actually have a book somebody gave me when we started the business back in '09 that had a compilation of a bunch of different color records with some very interesting designs. So this goes back 20, 30 years. It's just more prevalent now. It gets more publicity now. So, yeah.
So, going forward, what's kind of next for you guys, and where do you kind of see that kind of like revival going? Do you see, that interest just continuing, or is there anything else in the works for anything we can expect?
I think it's almost 5 releases that will be coming out this year. Dash full-length EP, Wax Mage double treble compilation should be out really soon. Hopefully going to be able to do some work with Fresh Produce and some more work with Quality Time down the road. As far as Wax Mage's future, I would like to, someday be a full-fledged record label where I actually am like signing bands and just like, set in a place where, I don't know, I just always want to be surrounded by music in one fashion or another. And I'm not going to leave Gotta Groove because I love my job and I love the people I work for. But I know that I would definitely, it's always been a dream of mine to own and run a record label, have my own business.
Yeah, we would like to be, Wax Mage to be our biggest customer at some point in time.
I would love that.
Yeah, for us, we do see vinyl continuing to grow. I assume at some point it will plateau. When you look at, despite the growth of vinyl, and you look at it compared to, again, when I was young and it was a dominant physical format, it's a small sliver of that pie. And I say this often to people, but my marker is when I stop having people come in who haven't been there before and, hey, what do you guys do? We make records, and they always say, well, now a lot of them say, well, they still make records, or maybe I'm starting to hear now, I heard like maybe records are coming back. It tells me that it's not a level of mass consciousness at this point in time. So that suggests that there's more growth. When I stop hearing that, I'll know, well, then maybe it's plateaued. I don't think it's going to go away. It never has gone away, despite the fact that people thought it had. There are a lot of pressing plants out there that have been around for a lot longer than we have. Some date back to like the 30s and 40s. So it's not going to go away. I think, again, it might plateau at some point, but it's going to be a nice, healthy niche business.
Well, and Vince, we spoke last year, but you said you were on par to reach 1 million records in 2017 out of Gotta Groove. Mm-hmm. Did you achieve that?
Yeah, we did. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
A little over that, yeah.
So, when you first started, how many were you putting out that first year compared to
I'd have to go back and look. Again, I tell this story a lot too, but we did our first release was a 100 record job of 2 local bands. It was a split, and so we pressed our first record, our first physical record, in the end of August of '09, and that was the record. And we didn't finish it until sometime in late October or early November. So it was 100 records. So now we make 100 records in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we've come an awful long way, and it's interesting to look back and see that now. But when you're in the middle of it, you just keep, putting one foot ahead of the other. You don't really necessarily realize that.
Absolutely, it's so great that you started so local centric, and what you're doing is really giving local bands something really one of a kind, and just awesome to be able to hold in your hand or sell at your show. But now you're also sending these records all around the world too. So it's cool to see you guys have some very big names playing.
Hopefully, Wax Mage can be and continue to be an integral part of Gotta Groove and helping to change the vinyl industry a little bit. In that we're making collectible things. Like, people go nuts. Like, when I put up records for sale for Wax Mage, it's always 20, 25, hand numbered, limited, this, that, and the other thing, and they're gone in 15 minutes, like just like that. So I know that there's a pretty huge demand for that stuff, and Gotta Groove is the only place that's making this stuff. I feel like if we can continue to make collectible pieces or unique pieces in the industry, that it'll keep it more in the forefront, not just Gotta Groove, but just the industry in itself.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's when you asked the earlier question too about what he's seeing on his end, but on our end, we're also getting more orders where they're requesting Wax Mage. So this is outside of the Wax Mage label, and we limit those intentionally for a couple of reasons. One is just the unique aspect of it, but the other is they physically take a lot of time, and so if we were doing nothing but those kinds of records, one, they wouldn't be as collectible, and two, they would kind of nudge out the bulk of what we do. So, but yeah, I see that continuing. Certainly, we've certainly seen that last year and this year, even with customers when they're putting their order. Hey, we'd like to get those 20 or 25 Wax Mage too tacked onto this.
That's awesome. That's a great collaboration. So, if we want to find out more about both of your businesses, where can we go?
GottaGrooveRecords.com.
And you can check out waxmagerecords.com. You can find Wax Mage Records on Instagram and also Facebook, and Gotta Groove Records, as well as on Instagram and Facebook.
Well, thank you guys so much for being our first guest.
Thanks so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Coming up next on the Two Nicks podcast is some local music. In this episode, we are featuring local rock band Mr. Carnivore. Mr. Carnivore has only been around for a couple of months, but they've been hard at work recording their own music, and they plan to put out an EP or an album sometime this year. The band is made up of Pat LaGuardia, Zoe LaGuardia, Mike Pappas, and Kevin Hanna. Here's their newest song, Knees.
We lived and died 1,000 times, stuck in a world turned on its side. You had your hopes and I had mine. We watched them splitting at the side. And hey, my life is nowhere gone from all the sorrow, please. I'm on my knees just to make your heart beat somewhere. I lost my feet. stuck in a world that never tells. Love keep together while we burn. And hey, my life is nowhere gone from all the sorrow. Please, I'm on my knees just to make your heart beat. Somewhere I lost my feet. We're the same when we're lost.
We've got a few local shows you should check out this month. First up, on February 5th at 4:30 p.m., you can join us at the Music Box Supper Club for the Cleveland Sessions launch party. Cleveland alternative rock band Seafair will be performing. You know, earlier in the podcast, we mentioned that a lot of musicians work at Gotta Groove. One of those is Seafair's own lead singer, Shayla Hope. She and the rest of the band will be headlining the event, which includes a 3-song set that will be taped by cleveland.com videographers, followed by a full show. Me and Nikki will be there at the show too, so come say hi. Also, if this is any incentive for you to go, there will be some free food there. And a little bit more about the Cleveland Sessions. It's a new cleveland.com video series produced in partnership with the Music Box and Oh Wow Internet Radio that puts the spotlight on bands you should know, both locally and nationally. And in the past, that's included The Modern Electric, Greta Van Fleet, and John Langford and the Four Lost Souls. You can watch those videos and find more information about the show at clevelandsessions.com.
Later this month, we also have the Clee Music City Showcase at the Grog Shop on February 17th, which kicks off at 8 p.m. This is put on by a local promoter, and every year they have a show featuring local bands with some of the best releases from the last year. This year's lineup is super eclectic. You have Morning of Black Star, which fuses soul, hip-hop, electronic, Hiram Maxim, which is experimental rock, P. Stoops, which is electronic, and Shag, which is one of the best newer punk bands in Cleveland. Coming up, of course, is Bright Winter Fest, happening on Saturday, February 24th, 3 p.m. on the west bank of the Flats. This is its 9th year, and it's become one of the biggest music festivals in Cleveland. We've had, amazing weather the last couple years, so we're crossing our fingers that it holds out this year too, just so there's so many venues and stages all throughout the Flats. They actually tapped Southern Australian indie act Atlas Genius to headline this year. I saw them at Bunbury a couple years ago, and they were fantastic, so I'm super looking forward to that. Seafair is also a local headliner. Among the many acts that are playing, there's Obnox, Herzog, Fresh Produce, Jack Ford, and many more regional bands throughout the whole day.
Thank you all for tuning in to episode 1 of 2 Nicks here on cleveland.com. Be sure to check out cleveland.com for more local music news and future episodes of our show.